Welcome to the trialogue discussion. The topic of the discussion is disrupting the status quo, transforming banking with the power of cloud technology and fintech innovations. So please join me in welcoming on stage the moderator of this session, Ms. Geetika Raheja, Executive Director, Payments Transformation, PwC India. Now I would like to invite our speakers for this session. May I please invite Mr. Rahul Ayyappan, co-founder and CTO, Finacus Solution. Mr. Ramesh Narayanaswamy, CTO, Aditya Birla Group. So ma'am will be taking few questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I think we're all very excited to be here discussing this very relevant topic, at least in the current state of affairs. I'm an executive director, and in my role, we work with a lot of banks, non-banks, payment service providers, governments, regulators in the area of payments and fintech. I think in terms of this topic, what I want to achieve from the discussion today is crystallizing what we really mean by cloud, right? I think the term has been loosely used. I think managed service models, hosting models have existed for over a decade and more now, right? But why this sudden discussion around cloud? What has changed fundamentally in the market today? I think what are some of the use cases we are seeing which are really seeing a transition to cloud when it comes to banks? When we look at fintechs and the collaboration models between banks and fintechs, how is that evolving, and what are banks doing in terms of cloud transformations to integrate with some of these fintechs? And finally, where do we see all of this heading, right? Is the era of cloud banking here, or do we think it's still some time away? But happy to hear from our panelists today. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Happy to be here. I know it will be a bit of a tough session for all of us, including me after lunch. We'll see how it goes. So my name is Ramesh. I'm the CTO for Aditya Birla Capital. So my role is kind of how do we bring all our different financial services company to a same level? Because we run all kinds of business, starting with lending, asset management, health insurance, life insurance. And each company started at a different point in time, have a different regulator, and even have a different context in the context of India, right? I mean, payments, I think in the last 4 years, we have moved so far. Insurance, I think health insurance still a long way to go. Life insurance has always been a fairly strong product in the country, but still, with respect to the base of the population, not a lot of people are covered. I think for me, in this topic, the key thing is, actually, we're talking about cloud and fintech for a very long time, if you realize, right? At least 10 years. 2010, 2011. And now the question is how differently it should be treated, right? 10 years back, it was new. End users did not have much of an idea. I used to be at Singapore Post at the time. When someone came and said, oh, you should run all your e-commerce business on cloud. In fact, we asked both questions, what is e-commerce, what is cloud? And then, we came a long way from there, right? So I feel, if you take the typical technology S-curve, I think both the fintechs and cloud are on that top of the S. Now they need to figure out what the next S is going to be, in my view. Because what we have done in the last 5-6 years, it's over. The time is up, right? Now it has to be a different model, different definition. And it is quite interesting. I was saying something, right? I mean, large fintech festival, when you go down the hall, Aditya Birla Capital is there, all the largest banks are there. So now you really think, the gap has been reduced. Right? Now, how do we go from here is really what I would like to discuss and take some questions and see how we move forward and make a meaningful second innings for both clouds and fintech.
Hi, I'm Rahul Ayyappan here. I'm the CTO and the co-founder at Finacus. Primarily, my responsibility has to first was towards building the products and services of the company, and then also advising a lot of my clients towards a cloud migration strategy. So, like he mentioned earlier, so 10 years back, the concept of cloud was very restrictive in terms of understanding. But over the last few years, a lot of my banking clients have now been more open to running their systems. So not the core systems like the core banking. They still, to a certain extent, like to maintain it on-premise at their own premises, but have their other ancillary products such as payments, account opening, lending, all those kind of use cases. KYC is another such use case where they are more open to go with either a cloud service provider or a solution which is based on a cloud and keep their core systems with them. But in the last couple of years, I even seeing the move to the core systems also moving towards the cloud from a perspective of challenges in terms of keeping up with the cybersecurity requirement or keeping up with uptime or challenges with people managing them. So there is a movement right now happening on the cloud front from all perspectives on banking per se and fintech solutions as such. The fintech organizations which you're seeing now in the GFF, most of them are now running on the cloud-based systems. All their systems are being done because based on the utilization of their resources, they're able to pay or charge their customers. So there is a movement happening from both sides. Banks also are moving as well as the fintech organizations are also.
Great, great. Thank you for the opening remarks. I think, Ramesh, we'll start with you on your views. I think when we speak about cloud, the first thought is scalability at affordable cost, at least in the beginning when you're starting off, right? That's the first thought, and quick go-to-market. Is that a myth, and is there more to it? And if we can speak about some of that.
No, scalability is given, right? I mean, I'll give an example always. Many years back, we had a client who said that, look, you're going to have 10,000 transaction in 15 minutes, right? Then we actually had 20,000 transaction in 3 minutes, right? The only way we could scale was we were running on cloud, right? Because in on-prem, we would have said, thank you very much, let's move on with life. So we did that. After some time, I got the bill for that, right? It wiped out the entire year's profit. Then we said, okay, now this is a problem. Yes, it scales, but it scales at cost. Okay, and we could not afford, right? Then we have to, then it became a very, how do I say, contractual discussion as to how we can pass the cost back to the customer because we could not run an infrastructure as a service. I think there is a challenge in which how the costing of cloud happens, and if it's infrastructure to infrastructure, I think it's reasonable. We can figure out what's going on, and within boundaries we can do, and that is the same way we managed on-prem. There is no difference between that, right? But when you start putting applications on top, I think there is a huge challenge because the OEM who gives the application, the cloud service provider who gives a cloud service providing, and the system integrator who system integrates. Actually, all of them want to make enormous amount of money in that. It's not going to happen, right? Because you're getting 3 different parties who have got reasonable knowledge of how their part works, and I don't think they also know how all the 3 things work together. And we are seeing cost going up significantly. I mean, significantly means I'm talking about cost of 4 times, 5 times. So that's the reason I'm saying, it is on the top of the desk. Right now, everyone has figured out cloud is very expensive, right? See, capex, opex is in banks that definition does not matter at all, right? What is your total cash spend? Because we lend to people enormous amount of money to run a bit of cloud by spending capex, opex does not break the bank at all, right? So that conversation is over. Now the cost is over, and then look at the reality of this, right? Now we have created a whole discipline called as FinOps to understand the cost of cloud. I mean, this is unacceptable. So that means people who are providing the solution don't know how costing is. And my CFO was saying, hey, what is this FinOps? I said, hey, that means are you telling me you guys don't know how the whole thing is costed? I said, actually, we don't know. Not only I don't know, the industry doesn't know. So that needs to be fixed, okay? Scalability is true. And even in innovation, what I'm saying is it is working very well for startups, people who are doing things very fast. But once they scale up, again, I'm seeing a lot of articles, people are saying that, hey, this is becoming not viable because you've got 1,000 features, right? At the end of the day, I'm using 20 of them. It's the same problem we had in core banking, right? So I think the industry have to redefine itself, find a way to bring cost into an acceptable one. That's number one. Between OEM, the cloud service provider, and the system integrator, they need to figure out how to make this thing absolutely, work in a way. And let us not be very saying that every day we need to do 100 features, out of which only 2-3 things are being used. I think once you get a sense of all these things, I think we can land up in a better model.
Rahul, any views? I think he's given a consumer point of view. I wanted to hear the provider point of view.
I agree with him on certain points, but I also disagree. So, for like an entity who's directly consuming the cloud, it works out expensive. But for a fintech company like us, so we know what the customer needs in terms of product. We somewhat know what his price expectations are. So being an entity who wants to balance out the cost as well as having the advantages of cloud in terms of scalability, security, compliance, is because we know the set of weaknesses what the client has. So for example, the segment which I cater to, one of their major weakness areas are having the people to run such systems. So if they have an on-prem solution, you have your virtualization, you have a database, you have your security systems, you have your network systems. So it becomes a challenge to maintain the people to run those systems. That's one. Second is to keep on reinvesting in those hardware or systems on say an end of life basis, or at least once in 3 to 5 years. That's a cost cycle which they have to. There's a huge refresh cost which is coming in. So being a provider who I utilize cloud on one side and offer a very affordable pricing model to him, but leaving out the part or the decision making of the resource utilization to me, and I give it to him on a say a per transaction basis kind of a model. So eventually the customer knows what he has to pay, but I agree with him what he says. Like for us, if we don't properly design the solution or design the infrastructure piece, it is a very expensive piece for us. But because we are in that business, we have to see to it that we are able to cater to the transaction processing capability of the client, but also at the at the cost factor as well. So we do that. So that's a company like us has to balance out both and give it to the end client. So I don't see pure cloud companies directly going to SMEs directly. They will need a intermediary company like ours, who has to make it affordable to them. So you have both sides of the story.
I think we started with the era of mainframes, and I think we are still there, right? There are a lot of banking tech which are run on mainframes today, which come with their own advantages, right? But how do you see some of that now evolving in the era of cloud, right? And is there like a trade-off? Is cloud meeting all the requirements that were, banks were used to? And how do you see some of that innovation coming along?
So if you even see the pure banking tech in the last maybe 5 years, it has evolved very fast. With the whole government push of Digital India and also the banking tech as a whole, use cases have evolved. Banks are coming up with new requirements in terms of solutions. So a cloud provider like us or a cloud SaaS company like us makes more sense because they can keep on evaluating options. They can keep on seeing what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So for a bank to tie up with me or put some money into my solution and then take it out, it's not that much of a hassle. So if he doesn't want to use it, he can stop using it because he's not invested on the capex, he's not invested on the license per se. So that evolution is always there. Needless to say, scalability, being on the cloud, we offer that. The uptime requirements, the regulatory requirements, the cybersecurity requirements. Cybersecurity being a very important aspect nowadays, and not everybody is to that level in terms of cybersecurity. So we offer all of that in a box. So I see a lot of use cases for at least banks and SME kind of NBFCs to get into this, because they are not looking at, like, technology is evolving so fast. So you can keep on changing as per needs. It's up to the solution provider how he sees to it that he's also evolving the technology from his side.
Ramesh, when there are all these advantages, why are we still only looking at surround systems for the move to cloud? And why are cores not moving to the cloud for large banks? What's holding them back?
It's not really. I mean, I can tell you, our health business, everything runs on cloud, right? Because it comes with the cost, so we're still figuring it out how to manage it. I think the concept of core itself is changing, right? I think that's something the banks have been caught in the last 3-4 years, right? See, the most important thing for a bank, whether you like it or not, is actually functionality, right? And I don't think it is going to change, right? Now we have used instead of the term functionality, we use the term journey, we use the term convenience. All these things boils down to a certain functionality which you give it to the consumer. Now I think where kind of it becomes challenge to move the core is that functionality map has changed a bit. Okay, so now now what is the best way to do it, right? Now, the best way to do it would be is you start moving around your surround and then slowly, either you want to call, disintegrate the core or do it, right? So that seemed to be the, going in strategy, because the reality is when you do these large scale migrations, right? Frankly, no one is able to give the guarantee that, the data is going to move correct, things will work. The industry is not giving that kind of comfort. Okay, so I think something has to happen in that space. An example I'll give is, Citibank, when I started my career, we kind of migrated some 50, 60 countries in 3 years. Okay, the only thing we'll guarantee is that migration will happen on the day, right? Technology is new, data components and new functionality is new. Today, that knowledge of how to do migration is lacking in the industry. Okay, actually, I don't think it is an end user problem. End of the day, if you go tell a bank, this is what you need to do, it's going to give you better functionality, better consumer experience, it's going to cost you a bit more. And the regulator says, look, as long as there is no problem, we can move. But now the question is, if no one wants to give guarantee for that, you are having a challenge, right? How much of heavy lifting the bank itself can use? So it is, actually you should look at the US, right? I used to work for a company called as HPS, a fascinating company, all products in modern tech, right? But then when we went and looked at the US market, everyone runs mainframes, right? They're saying that, look, my ATM works, everything works, why do I need to change? So it is also that, right? Because your current infrastructure is working very well. It is serving the needs of the client. So I think we need to be a bit more practical about it. I think eventually people will move to a different kind. I don't know, might not call it a score. But today I think it is an absence of set of people coming together to make it happen is making this thing difficult, rather than saying that the end user does not want to move out of the core.
Interesting thoughts, Ramesh. So Rahul, I think moving a little more on.
If you have an idea, you want to start up to it, I mean, cloud is the only way out, right? Because buying and setting up your own things, it is going to be extremely expensive. In terms of, sorry, I just missed the second part of the question. Can you?
No. Are you making decisions around cloud looking at competition?
No, absolutely. I mean, look, see that I think is given, right? I mean, we have to give because customers demand it, right? Because that's a challenge, right? Now, I might say 6 months is okay for me, but if someone is banking with me and if he feels there is a functionality which another organization have done, his expectation is, we also need to give. So absolutely, there is no doubt on that. But I think still the basics of whether it is the right architecture, whether how we are going to scale, what is the cost at which, all those things come into play. See, we do a lot of POCs, right? And if you see how many POCs become project, I think that ratio is fairly less in most of the organizations, because you can't take every single concept to production, because it becomes a very expensive affair at point in time. But definitely, I mean, if and the banks have been very good at it, right? Banks have been a very inward focusing organization. But I think the last 10 years they listen to customers more than anyone else. I think they've changed so much, right? I worked in 3 banks in the time. I mean, the conversation which used to happen in 99, 2000 versus now are very different. People really look at that whole customer angle, so it's real.
The hype is real. Okay, I think we'll conclude the conversations and move on to questions. But just before we end, Rahul, 5 years from now, challenges, opportunity, trend, when it comes to cloud banking, where do you see it heading? I mean, what's different? I think we've been having similar conversations for the last 5 years. What's going to change in the next 5 years?
In my view, the core systems will also move on to the cloud. That's what I look at it, because banks and organizations are now moving towards, they want to focus on their core business and don't want to focus on the technology aspect, because a lot of the investment goes into technology. A lot of their discussions on a daily basis is more driven by technology. So there would come a point where, they want to focus more on their core business of running the business, a company like his, running the business rather than focusing on technology. But yes, there will be a very lean technology team which is required to manage, the relationships with various cloud systems. But more or less, I see the huge movement towards that. Because like even in his industry, any form of, downtime or rejections or customer service getting hampered might lead to penalties, right? So with cloud providers giving a huge amount of SLAs, or the customer also can demand that high level of SLAs. So there is a certain amount of comfort which is coming into play, and I believe I see a huge potential there. There's still a huge market there. a huge, huge market still for at least the next, you're talking of 2030, I see it for another 10 years.
No, I mean, I always, tell the story, right? There's a story about Einstein, right? His assistant will come and ask him, Professor, you have forgotten, as usual, you have given the same question paper which you gave last year, right? It's at modern physics in 1940. Einstein used to say, look, the questions are same, but the answers have changed. Okay? That's what is going to happen in the next 5 years, right? And I always joke, I mean, I spoke somewhere else, right? I mean, many years back, there used to be, I think it was State Bank of India, right? It used to say, Dr. Rajendra Prasad owned an account with us, do you? I mean, still, we all open a savings account. So those things are not going to change, right? The way a loan will be given will be the same. I think the technology solutions will change. Might be, it would be, cloud plus plus, it would be fintech minus, something will happen. The problems will largely, but speed, right? The speed at which you are going to solve the problem, the experience which you give to the customers, all those things will have to definitely change, right? Because, and I think AI will have an impact, right? Whatever we say that it might not matter, it is going to have an impact on, how a thing, I mean, it could be a very indirect impact, right? Say you crack something in medicine, right? Now it says that, living 100 years old is going to be very common, right? Now the whole insurance industry have to change. You don't have a choice, right? Now the whole premium is based on that, might be 60, 65. No one, you don't take a term insurance if you're 65. Now if you're going to live to 100, you better take a term insurance. Then your underwriting process have to change, right? So I think the construct will be there, and I think it will be a huge change, and I think we're all blessed, to be in a fascinating time to see the whole generation of changes which are taking place.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Rahul. I think we've had a very interesting discussion. Opening it up for questions now. No time, sorry. No time for questions, I'm sorry. But feel free to maybe reach out to any of us for questions. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.